to the Token and Hobbs Show on the Roads to Liberty Network.
What is up, everybody? Yes, I know my fearless co-host in Liberty is not here at the moment. He is indisposed because he is dealing with a really cruddy computer. Whoa, do not want that. All right, well, I think I'm back. All right, guys, I am your host, Token. You are listening to the Token and Hobbs Show on the Roads to Liberty Network. It is a beautiful Tuesday night, and I am running solo for the time being. So you get to deal with me. Hobbs is on his way, he assures me. But I figured it's been 10 minutes. I had to start the broadcast without him. Sorry, Hobbs, you're going to have to jump in at some point in time. And it's an open question as to whether or not I will let you jump in. So what are we going to start off with? Well, I wanted to save this this case of one former officer, Philip Braisford, until Hobbs is here, because I think he has some good insight on that. So what else are we going to talk about? Let's talk about Donald Trump for a little bit, because he's our favorite orange man, isn't he? By the way, to that Trump supporter that got me banned for 3 days on Facebook, screw you. You are not a man, and you shouldn't be dealing with real men. But in case you guys were missing me for Facebook, I am back, and the memes shall continue. All right, so let's get started with Donald Trump. He had he started a bit of a shitstorm lately with a series of tweets that were aimed at certain progressive congressional females. Let me just read it out to you, and then we can get to the discussion, shall we? Okay. So this is what he said, and it's a bit long. He goes, "So interesting to see progressive Democrat congresswomen who originally came from countries whose governments are a complete and total catastrophe, the worst, most corrupt, and inept anywhere in the world, if they even have a functioning government at all, now loudly and viciously telling the people of the United States, the greatest and most powerful nation on earth, how our government is to be run. Why don't they go back and help fix the totally broken and crime-infested places from which they came? Then come back and show us how it is done. These places need your help badly. You can't leave fast enough. I'm sure that Nancy Pelosi would be very happy to quickly work out free travel arrangements." Now, this started a bit of a shitstorm along the left, and so it should, because it's pretty absurd the way he goes about this. I mean, let's get the obvious out of the way right now. None of the people he's targeting are from foreign countries. Are from foreign countries. The only one that could be construed as such would be Ilhan Omar, who was born in Somalia, and whose family migrated to the United States when she was 10 years old. That's a very young age. So she grew up her entire life almost her entire life inside the United States, certainly her entire adult life. And that's the only person really who this could possibly be targeted at. But he says progressive women, so we can only assume he's talking about the likes of Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez or Rashida Tlaib, these female progressives who were ushered in the last congressional election. But yeah, Ilhan Omar is the only one that would even accurately refer to. And the thing about it is, her family was originally from Somalia. It's not like Somalia is a bastion of progressive values anyway. So it's not like that country is open to change. It's not like it represents her values at all. Now, you don't have to agree with any of these people. I certainly don't. The crew, as they come to call themselves in Washington, they're just a bunch of identitarians. They wave the flag of social justice and identity politics. That's their thing. And I don't agree with a word of it. I don't agree at all with the mantra of social justice. I don't agree at all with the mantra of identity politics. Identity politics to me has always been absurd and exists for the purpose of solidifying racist tendencies and divisions rather than bringing people together. Now, the entire point of identity politics is not to end racism, but to identify, but to the purpose of identity politics is to set up a hierarchy of grievances and to award more aggrieved people groups according to, the progressives' perception of how much they were aggrieved. It exists to set up a hierarchy, and that's the whole point of identity politics and such. I mean, that's the entire purpose of it. So I don't agree with these women at all. I don't agree with most of their policies, what they stand for. But this is not the way to go about attacking their ideas. To simply say, go back to your country, it makes absolutely no sense. It rests on the assumption that all these people came from another country at all, which is not true. It makes no sense to make that accusation with the knowledge that they're all American. With the exception of Omar, they were all born in America, and she came to America when she was 10 years old. Young enough to grow up an American. It's not like she's a recent immigrant at all. So it makes no sense to level that accusation at them. Tell them go back. Like where? Go back to your country. Where is that exactly? Okay, so for Omar, that would be Somalia, I guess. But like I said, that's not really her country. She hadn't lived there since she was 10 years old. She's a grown adult now. If you grow up in a place since you're 10 years old, you're from that place. She's not Somalian. She's from the United States. And like I said, you can disagree with them all you want, and I do strongly on most of their policies, but there's no reason to assume that they aren't American. So say, oh, go back to your country. Makes absolutely no sense. And it is what it does. It cans more ammunition to Trump's enemies. This is a guy that just loves shooting himself in the foot. He does it over and over and over again, and it rallies up the base. But he really is just digging his own grave with stuff like this. The winning strategy for him in 2020 is not to go out and make tweets like this. The winning strategy for him is to just contrast himself with the Democrats. Say, oh, look how crazy these people are. Hey, look how insane they are. Look at the things they want to do. Now look at AOC. She wants to eliminate air travel. That's pretty crazy, right? She talks about cow farts in her Green New Deal. That's pretty crazy, right? And yes, it is really crazy. It's insane. The left in this country is getting further and further to the left and leaving the rest of middle America behind. We all know this. You all know this. The only people who don't know this are the hard left social progressive types who think that's where America wants to go, but it's really not. There's our partner in crime.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank
Awesome.
you for joining us.
Yes, I'm on the tablet. Unfortunately, the computer decided to do a hard restart right as I was about to get going. I had a bunch of updates because I never use my computer anymore, so I'm on the tablet, and it looks like my computer just restarted, but it would probably take forever to get it on there. But you guys can hear me. What have I missed?
Well, I was just talking about Donald Trump's series of unfortunate tweets again. The ones for this week at least, because the guy can't keep himself from tweeting terrible, crappy stuff. Really don't understand it. But yeah, that's what you missed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what you have put in to the topic. I started the watch party, but I had it on mute so that it wouldn't, feedback through here. So I don't know what you said. So if you want me to jump in, we can, or we can move on.
Nope, we can move on. That's not the topic I want to talk about most about. Like, let's talk about Donald Trump's tweets. That's low-hanging fruit. You can talk about that every single day of every single week, all up until Donald Trump is no longer president. So that's not what I want to talk about most. That's really just, that was my filler topic until you got in here and we could talk about the topic I really wanted to talk about. I don't know if you've been seeing what's going on, but do you remember the case of a one Philip Braisford out from the Mesa Police Department, I believe out in Arizona? Do you remember this?
I do.
Yes. So here's the thing. This happened like 2 years ago, back in 2017. An officer by the name of Philip Brailsford was conducting I want to call it a challenge. That's what we would have called it in the Air Force. We would call it a challenge of an individual by the name of Daniel Shaver. He was along with his Sergeant Charles Langley. They were called into a hotel because the suspect Daniel Shaver had been showing off, I believe it was to his fiance, a pellet gun that he had. Somebody saw this and called the police. So the police show up to the location and, rightfully think that there might be danger. Someone tells you that, there's a guy with a gun in a hotel room. You respond thinking that there might be danger afoot. This is a reasonable response. It's reasonable to take precautions because of that report. Now, they show up to the scene and they pull Mr. Shaver and, again, I think it was his fiance, out. They conduct a challenge on both of them. And by the end of it, Mr. Shaver is dead. And both Charles Langley and Philip Brailsford have been suspended. Well, Sergeant Langley retired soon after. And Officer Brailsford was tried for murder and acquitted by a jury. Now, I want to guys take you back. I want to show you the video of what happened. And I want to talk about it as we go. I want to talk about this video as we go. Because the thing about it is it's absolutely insane. Now, for those of you that are listening to the podcast, I'll describe it as we go. But I want you to see what's happening. I'm going to stop it now and then to tell you my perspective of it. Now, you may ask, Token, why do we care about your perspective? What knowledge do you have about any of this? Well, I'll tell you, because I actually was a security forces airman in the U.S. Air Force. And part of the security forces job is to conduct police work. So I've actually had extensive training on how to challenge suspects, and how to apprehend individuals. I'm not talking out of my ass. I've had training on how to do this. I've done it. I did it for 5 years. I know what I'm talking about. So when I stop the video and point out mistakes they're making, I'm not talking out of my ass. I know what I'm talking about. So without further ado, let me get to this video.
Stop right there! Stop! Stop! Get on the...
All right, so here what you see is Mr. Shaver coming out of the hotel room. He doesn't know what's going on. And officers Langley and Brailsford are both pointing guns at them. Right away, this is a very tense, surprising, frightening situation, as you can imagine. So let's move on and see what happens.
On the ground, both of you, lay down on the ground. Lay down on the ground.
All right, so far, the officer is using a very deep, very loud, commanding voice. That's what you want to do. You want to project your voice, be loud, and speak with authority. You want to make sure that the perp understands you and can hear you clearly. That's the goal, and so far, he's fine.
Yep, and it looks like he's the victim is complying and lying on the ground. Now, I don't have your experience as, somebody who did this type of work, all the time, but just, hindsight being what it is, this, if I were in this officer's shoes, this would kind of be where the tenseness would kind of end. Yeah,
because he was he didn't comply right away, but you can understand because he's surprised. He walks out of his hotel room, and there are men with guns pointing them at him. So he's surprised, he's shocked, he's frightened. This is understandable that he might not immediately comprehend what you're doing.
Yeah,
right?
And his hands immediately, like he come around the corner, his hands went up and he started going to his knees even before the cop said anything.
All right, let's continue.
Yeah.
And before I continue, for those of you who are watching, this does get graphic at the end, so fair warning to you.
Nobody else is in the room. Okay. Apparently, we have a failure for you to comprehend simple instructions. I'm going to go over some of them again. Okay? Can you both hear and understand me?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what did he say right there? He said, apparently we have a problem with comprehending simple instructions. Now, we just commented about how they complied as soon as the shock of men with guns pointing at them wore off. Now, they seemed compliant to me. They didn't seem like they were going to run, like they were going to fight. They seemed like two people who were shocked to have guns pointed at them. And here's the officer going, you guys seem to have a problem understanding simple instructions. What he's doing here, unfortunately, is upping the tension. Because now the guy's doing, oh shit, what did I do wrong? What am I doing wrong? He's upping the stress level there. And when you up the stress level, you up the chance of a mistake being made. Let's continue. So right now, Mr. Shaver is lying on the ground with his hands outstretched in front of him. His fiancée is off screen, but she's down there next to him, and the police are pointing guns at him.
All right. If you make a mistake, another mistake, there's a very severe possibility you're both going to get shot.
Okay, right there. Let's stop that right there. If you make another mistake, there's a very good chance you're going to get shot. Now, again, he's upping the stress level, and he's upping the chance of that very mistake happening. This is a mistake, okay? You do not want the individual you're challenging more stressed out than he has to be. You do not want to escalate the situation. Not in the least bit. You want to de-escalate it. You want him to be calm. You want to speak with authority, but you want to be calm as well. You don't want to come off as panicky because that's going to make him panicky. And with good reason.
But that's just the thing is his voice, the inflection, the tone, the cadence. He's not panicky. He's cocky. If you make another mistake, there's a good chance that you are going to get shot. Like almost like he's, I mean, I don't want to read too much into it, but it's almost like he's hoping something's going to happen.
And he's upping the stress level in that room. He's making the person he's challenging panicking. And he's already panicky. You could see that from the very first shot. Let's move on.
Do you understand that? Yes. Yes. All right. This is, shut up. I'm not here to be tactful or diplomatic with you. You listen, you obey. For one thing, did I tell you to move, young man? Did I tell you to put both your hands on the top of your head and interlace your fingers? Take your feet and cross your left foot over your right.
All right, let me stop this right here. Let's go over what he could have done differently. What the officer could have done instead of this. Because this is a very odd position to put a suspect in. Because what you want to do is be able to search that individual without exposing yourself to danger. Now, you can't go up to him because he's in a doorway. And you don't know if there's anybody in that doorway. You don't know if there's anyone in that doorway that has a gun. So if you go up to search him right now where he's lying, you're going to be putting yourself in the line of fire if there's someone in there. So what he could have done instead was leave the man standing, have him raise his hands in the air or lift his shirt up a little bit, and then make a circle so they could see if there was anything in his waist. Now, remember, they're here because they think he has a gun. Now, he can't hide a rifle in his pants like this. The only thing he can hide on his person is a handgun. And the best place to hide your handgun is around your waist. So if you tell him to grab his shirt around his armpits, lift it up to where you can see the skin around his belt line and have him do a 360 turn, you can see right then and there if there's a gun. And if there's no gun, no need to be panicky. Then you can have him walk backwards towards you, or get on his knees and crawl on his knees, not his hands, just his knees towards you, or whatever. Or you can make him go further back away from you so that he's not in the doorway, and then have one officer keep a beat on him while the others clear the room. Any one of these options is a good option. What they have him do in this video is a very bad option. We'll see why.
Yeah, not to mention that he's also giving very complicated instructions as well. Like, cross your left foot over your right foot and put your hands behind your head and interlace your feet. Just, put your hands behind your head and cross your feet.
Yeah, and he didn't help the situation by panicking the guy either. He's flustered and he's making mistakes.
Right, he's running on pure adrenaline and lizard brain. Giving complex instructions is going to complicate the matter.
Right, and you can see it in the video. The officer is telling him to cross his left foot over his right foot, I think, and the guy switches his feet out 3 times because he can't figure out which is which. He's panicked, so he makes mistakes. And we'll keep playing.
Who else is in the room?
Nobody.
So here they're going to start telling his fiance to move towards them. He's still on the ground. His hands are on his head.
No. All right. So you're not going to have any problems understanding anything that I tell you, right?
Great.
See, this is the tone of voice he should be speaking in when he's not giving them a direct command, right? This tone of voice is calmer. It's more collective. It's not meant to make a person panic. This is the tone of voice when you're giving a command, loud, clear, concise, in command. But right here, he's just talking to the guy. All right? You want to talk to him like he's a human being. Don't panic him, because that causes mistakes and that makes people scared. And if he was a legitimately dangerous person, making him think that you're going to shoot him is a mistake, because then he might decide to shoot you first. That's a mistake. So let's keep going.
Can I go to my room?
No, you're not going to do anything but come towards us. Young man, you're not to move. You're to put your eyes down and look down at the carpet. You're to keep your fingers interlaced behind your head. You're to keep your feet crossed. If you move, we're going to consider that a threat, and we are going to deal with it, and you may not survive.
Again, upping the stress level.
Young lady, shut up and listen.
More upping of the stress level. Telling somebody shut up is a very good way to trigger something in that just stresses them out. Quiet. Be quiet. Listen to me. This is what you want to say. This is what you want to do. So let's keep going.
All right? You are to keep your feet crossed. Take both of your hands. Put them flat in front of you. You are to push yourself up to a kneeling position. Kneeling position. Now, put both your hands in the air. Okay, crawl towards us.
I'm so sorry.
Okay. Stop.
All right. The girlfriend or fiance has reached the police line, and now one of them is going to apprehend her.
Pull,
This
Reggie,
way.
pull.
And Mr. Shaver is still on the ground in front of the police officers. They still have their guns pointed at him. His face is down. His fingers are interlaced above his head.
Okay, when you're done with that, lay her flat. Okay, I need one more cuff rope. Okay. the deal. We're gonna do almost like we did before, okay? Okay, young man, listen to my instructions and do not make a mistake. You are to keep your legs crossed. Do you understand me?
Yes, sir.
You are to put both of your hands palm down, straight out in front of you. Push yourself up to a kneeling position. I said, keep your legs crossed!
And see, here's the thing about this. Keeping your legs, it's an unnatural command to give to someone. You know what I mean? This is where I say it would have been a lot better to leave him standing in this situation, check his waistband to see if there's a weapon, and have him walk backwards with his hands in the air and feet spread out towards you. Now, that's a lot better than this situation because they still don't know if there's a gun in his waistband. You know, and they're very conscious of the idea that there might be one, but they didn't check. They took no precautions whatsoever to make sure that there wasn't a gun in that waistband. They could have. This would have been very easy to do. You know, I was taught this first week of technical school after basic training, how to conduct a challenge. All right? You do not have a person crawl on his hands and knees with his ankles crossed towards you. Especially that's not a good idea. It's unnatural. You shouldn't be doing that. And yet that's exactly what they decide to do. So they yell at him because he uncrossed his ankles, which is what you would normally do when you rise up to your hands and knees. All right, and let it be known that his fiance did the same thing when she rose up to her hands and knees. You could see her legs come uncrossed. But they didn't panic when she did it. They panicked when he did. So let's keep going.
I didn't say there's a conversation. Put your hair! Hands up in the air! You do that again, we're shooting you!
This is what happens when you fluster unnecessarily a suspect. When you tell him again and again and again that if he makes the slightest mistake, that you will shoot him. He panics. He's flustered. He doesn't know what he's doing. That is what we're seeing in this video. He is moving his hands in front of him, behind him. He doesn't know what to do. He's fearing for his life. He is clearly scared out of his mind. And the cops are not making the situation any better. What they're doing is increasing the chances that he'll make a mistake and telling them that if he makes a mistake, they will shoot him.
Do you understand?
Please do not shoot me.
Then listen to my instructions.
I'm trying to do what you
Don't talk!
Listen to this guy's voice. Hobbs, does he sound like someone that's gonna pull out a gun and shoot you? Or does he sound like a guy who's about to piss himself? The dude is, I think your microphone came out. I can't hear you. The dude is begging for his life. He's begging them, please don't shoot me. I don't have a gun. I don't have a weapon. Please, for the love of God, I am trying to do what you tell me. There you are. Like,
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. He's saying I'm
All right.
trying to do what you tell me. Please don't shoot me. Does that man sound like a cold-blooded killer to you, Hobbs? Does that sound like a guy who's legitimately fearful for his life?
No, he's crying. He's legitimately crying.
There's no other way to interpret that. He is crying and begging for his life. And these police officers are not making anything easier for him. Right now, I realize the job of a police officer isn't to make things easier for a suspect, all right, especially one that they consider armed. I get that. I understand. I did the job of a police officer for 5 years. All right. Now, it wasn't in the civilian world. It was in the military world, which is completely different because the worst thing we had to deal with on a police level was drunks. That's the worst we had to deal with. But we were trained in how to handle situations like this, and this man giving these orders is a sergeant. Presumably a man with some experience in years of training. He should know not to make a suspect panic, because that makes things harder on himself too, not just on the suspect.
Listen! Hands straight up in the air. Do not put your hands down for any reason. You think you're going to fall, you better fall on your face. Your hands go back in the small of your back or down. We are going to shoot you. Do you understand me?
Now that right there could have been interpreted as a command. You put your hands down in the small of your back. I wouldn't have blamed the guy if he went and did it right then, right there.
Yep.
That in the heat of the moment could have been interpreted as a command. And he's lucky that he didn't do it right then, right there, because he would have been shot. See, this is what people are talking about when they say that in this officer is giving contradictory commands, right? Because that could have been interpreted in that moment as a command. Now, it wasn't supposed to be, but it very well could have been interpreted that way by a panicky suspect.
Yep.
Right? Now, we're going to hear another contradictory command right here in a minute.
Crawl towards me. Crawl towards me.
Right there. Now, what was he just saying a minute ago?
He said, keep your hands straight up in the air. If you put them down, we're going to shoot you. And then he says, crawl towards me.
Yep.
Now, crawl means on all fours to me.
Yeah, when you tell me to crawl, I am going to assume you mean to put my hands and knees on the ground and move towards you on all four limbs. That's what crawling means. And he was just telling this man that if he puts his hands on the ground, he will die. And now he's telling him to crawl. Contradictory commands. He's playing Simon Says with this man's life.
Yep.
He's crawling. He's crawling. His basketball shorts start falling down his waist. His shorts start coming off, and the man reaches behind him to pull them back up. And they murder him. That is an act of murder. You cannot tell me watching this video that was justified. It's not. That is murder. Now, it's something important to say here is that the man pulling the trigger is not the same man giving the orders. Sergeant Langley is giving the orders. He's the one creating this situation. And it was Officer Brailsford who pulled the trigger and murdered this man. So both of them share the blame in this situation. It's not just Officer Brailsford who's at fault. He is. But it's not just him. It's also Sergeant Langley, who got out completely scot-free in this situation because he simply retired from the force and no one heard from him again. He got off easy. And he is the one that here's the thing about it. He didn't just create a stressful environment for the suspect. He created a stressful environment for his officers as well. All right? Now, this Sergeant Brailsford was a 26-year-old man at the time, more than old enough to be responsible enough not to murder a man. All right? But the stressful situation in that room was caused entirely by Sergeant Langley and his insanely inept challenge procedures. I don't know if that's the way they teach them to do it at that police department, but it's absolutely insane. It makes no sense. If that's the way they're training them, then they need to stop right now, because that right there is an act of pure murder.
Yep.
And it pisses me off to no end, especially to see people come out and try to justify it. Like, oh, he feared for his life. Oh, he could have had a gun back there. There are a dozen different ways that they could have conducted that challenge to eliminate the possibility of there being a gun in his waistband, and they didn't take any of those routes. They went this stupid Simon Says, crawl towards me with your ankles crossed route, and it ended up in the death of an innocent man.
Yep.
If nothing else, it's negligence. But that's light.
The guy's
saying this is negligence is light, it's murder.
Yep, the guy's crawling on his hands and knees. He's wearing a pair of basketball shorts. One, there's very, very, very few basketball shorts that I'm aware of that can support the weight of a gun. And two, as he's crawling, his shorts begin to slip down. Once that happens, if there was a gun by some strange happenstance in his waistband in the small of his back, it would have fallen out at that point anyways. This guy was hopped up on adrenaline, probably looking for a reason. His supervisor or sergeant or whatever was giving stupid commands and freaking everybody in the room out. And now a man's dead. But it gets worse, doesn't it?
Oh, it gets much worse. So it's not, we wouldn't be bringing up this story unless there was something more recent that occurred. Now, this guy was acquitted by a jury because, of course, he was. Police officers are hardly ever held accountable for their criminal negligence. All right? It never happens. Almost never happens. They get out scot-free all the time. But here's the icing on the cake for this case. So this guy, this murderer, he gets rehired by the Mesa Police Department and then retired immediately so that he could collect medical benefits for disability. Now, what do you think the disability he is claiming is? And it's a doozy. You ready for it? PTSD from shooting this man. That's right. He murders an innocent civilian, and he is going to be paid the sum of $2,500 a month for the rest of his life. At 28 years old, he is going to be cashing in a free paycheck every month for the rest of his natural life. Can you believe that?
I picked the wrong profession.
Oh, you sure did. In no other profession, I can't even imagine another profession where you can straight up murder a man and then be paid for it for life, and not just a paltry sum. He's being paid $2,800 a month for life. That's a lot.
Right.
For PTSD from shooting an innocent man. Oh, poor you. You're suffering from PTSD. This man's children are growing up without a father. All right? And you're upset because you have PTSD because you made them fatherless children. Boo-hoo. Go jump in a river.
Yeah. On my second and third deployments to Iraq, we would have to fill out pages and pages of paperwork and run the risk of getting an Article 15 if we shot at a car, not to engage it, but as a warning shot. So much so that it discouraged a lot of people from, they would second guess themselves on taking legitimate warning shots. Because, I don't know if I want to fill out the paperwork and have to deal with the possibility of the chain of command thinking, from secondhand sources that the shot that I took was illegitimate, and then I get an Article 15 busted down in rank and a whole bunch of other stuff. That was in Iraq, in a war zone. You ran the risk of losing pay and losing rank and having to fill out a bunch of paperwork and reports for taking a shot at a car. Not to engage it, not to kill anybody, just to say, hey, get off of our ass. And this guy's cashing a $2,500 pension check for the rest of his life for killing somebody in America, not in a war zone. Get bent.
Exactly. And this point has been made by others, not by us, that the rules of engagement in war zones are tougher than they are for cops in the United States. Like, yeah, if you shoot at somebody in Iraq or Afghanistan, you better have a damn good reason for doing it. And you better follow all the rules of engagement, because otherwise your ass could land in jail.
Yeah.
That's no joke. That's very serious stuff. If you shoot at somebody and you don't have a good enough reason for it, if they weren't about to murder you right then and there, then you're fucked. You're going to jail. You know, and your higher-ups aren't going to rescue you. That's the thing about it. These two officers higher-ups came to their rescue. I mean, not only were they rehired for the purpose of retiring him immediately just so he could get this disability check, but they also covered his legal fees. All right, the taxpayers covered his legal fees and gave him a neutral recommendation for future job employment. They covered his ass. He murders a man, they take care of him.
Yeah. At a $2,500 pension, why would he need to work again? I work my ass off 10 or 11 hours a day, and I don't make that much money.
No, it's insane. Mercedes says exactly. We don't have the discipline in our local forces anymore. But it's because no one wants to do it anymore. And not even in our military. I've had interesting encounters lately. I mean, I don't doubt it. The thing is that this is a consequence of the not just the militarization of our police officers in this country, but just the sheer number of laws they're expected to enforce and the crime that those laws create. I mean, we're libertarians here. We talk about the drug war quite often, but that's one of the reasons that crime is so terrible in this country. And it's one of the reasons why officers are expected to do more and more and more, and their standards for taking new individuals to become officers go down more and more and more all the time. And while their standards for officers go down, the equipment that they're using is more and more militarized, right? Like, you can become a cop in like a couple months, all right? It takes 6 months to get out of basic training for a security forces specialist, and then 4 months to finish that. So it takes almost a year to create a cop in the Air Force. And then you get to your first duty station, and you're given the cruddiest posts. You're not expected to do anything. You are not even put in a police car consistently until you're an experienced senior airman, which is like 2 years into your enlistment, right? Otherwise, you're sitting at a gate the whole time. So the amount of training that you go through before you get to that point is pretty extensive. You are expected to know a lot. You're expected to be a professional. You can become a police officer in a few short months and be right out on the street patrolling by yourself. I mean, that's the simple fact that we deal with right now. And if we didn't have such a glut of laws that that these inexperienced individuals are expected to enforce all the time, maybe cases like this wouldn't happen quite so often.
Yep.
Maybe. I can only hope. All right. Well, that was infuriating enough, and I need to get that out of my system. So let's move on to something a bit more light. So did you hear about this invasion of Area 51 that's going to go down?
How can you get away from it? It's everywhere.
Oh, God. The memes of this thing are just absolutely hilarious. So apparently these jokers, I don't even know who started this thing, but these jokers decided they created an event called Let's Storm Area 50. Oh, Storm Area 51. They can't stop all of us. It's scheduled for September 20th. I can't wait. I want to see this so bad.
It's either going to be a massacre or it's going to be, a non-issue. I don't know what the significance of September the 20th is, why they chose that date. but it's so far out there that I think that a lot of the steam is going to die off, and people are going to get disinterested in it. You know, people on the internet, they have the attention span of a goldfish, and so by the time September 20th rolls around, we'll already have had, 3 different viral sensations come through, and September 20th will roll around. They're like, "Oh, that was today? Oh, who cares?"
Isn't it amazing though how all the focus on Jeffrey Epstein just vanished because of this?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking
Well,
about it. We did an episode on Epstein last week, so we're not going to talk about him again. But this is some funny stuff. It's pretty funny. I want it to be like a Woodstock event out in the middle of the desert. That would be absolutely. I would laugh my ass off if that happened.
Like right up against the boundary fence. It's like almost like we're not in Area 51. You can't do anything about it, but we're gonna have some type of.
I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you.
Exactly. We're gonna have some type of Woodstock Burning Man, clap them cheeks alien thingy.
Everyone's getting high, having weird, crazy orgies, unwashed bodies, sweat pouring everywhere. They're all dehydrated and passing out in the desert. The National Guard's coming out and giving everybody IVs. The only people who are going to be having a good time in this scenario are the people who own hotels in the vicinity of Area 51. They're making bank. They're already filled to capacity. They're selling lots out in their yards for people to set up tents.
Yep.
Like literally, yeah. I was reading in a Forbes today, and they were talking about how the nearest inn to Area 51 is already filled to capacity. And most of the people, almost all the people calling them and making reservations are doing it because of the raid.
Yeah.
Oh, the memes, dude. It's glorious. It's going to be one of the funniest events. If something happened, I have the feeling that once we get close to this thing, everyone's going to chicken out and no one's actually going to go, which is going to be a real shame.
Yeah.
I want to see a bunch of fucking losers getting dehydrated out in the desert. Here's the funny thing. Here's what I bet's going to happen. All these people probably think that, it's an it's a military base. You can get right up to a military base most places. Like here over in Bellevue, just a few miles down the road, you can get people live like right across the street from the fence line. That's not how Area 51 is. Area 51 is way out in the middle of the desert. So it's not like you can just get out of your hotel room and walk. All right? You need to plan this thing. All right? And having an army of incel virgins trying to raid this place is just going to be the most hilarious. The military is not even going to have to stop them. They're just going to have to sit back and wait for them to pass out of dehydration, then go around and pass out IVs.
Yeah, you see all these little maps of these people are going to come from this side and these people are going to come from this side. And if we just run and bum rush the air, I'm like sitting there like, it's a satellite photo. These distances is like 20 miles. You guys are going to be Naruto running for 20 miles.
Just that image alone is making me laugh.
Like, I don't think I could Naruto run for 20 feet without getting winded at this point, especially not the Nevada heat.
They're going to have to bust themselves out to the base, at which point all the military has to do is park a Jeep in front of it, get out, take the keys, and be like, all right, what now? Yeah. I got the keys. Now you're stuck. There's no air conditioning in this thing anymore. I turned it off. And then you're 20 miles from the base. So turn back. Just go. Go home. This raid is over. I got the keys. The most anticlimactic raid of all time.
Yep.
I don't know, man. I did the Air Force is already, they've won people off. Air Force spokeswoman Laura McAndrews has said, Area 51 is an open training range for the U.S. Air Force, and we would discourage anyone from trying to come into the area where we train American armed forces. The U.S. Air Force always stands ready to protect America and its assets. And yeah, we trained to fight the terrorists, we trained to fight the Soviets, trained to fight the Russians. I bet we can handle a bunch of Naruto runners rushing through the desert.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Right. The only thing I have to say to them is that, one, it's an Air Force base, so I know it's stereotypical, but airplanes. Two, go back and play that Call of Duty Modern Warfare mission where you were up in the AC-130. You remember that one? Okay. And just realize that real life is about 10 times more destructive than that mission, what an AC-130 can do. And that right there should just be enough to make everybody go, well, yeah, maybe we should rethink this whole thing.
I don't know, man. I want to see it. I want to see what happens. As I don't know what the rules for engagement at that base are. As I know, if they have been rushing RAF Mildenhall, I wouldn't have been allowed to just open fire and kill people. No, I would be like, oh, well, I'm going to lock myself in this gate shack and let it happen because I'm not killing a bunch of people. But I don't know what the rules of engagement at Area 51 are. I'm picturing them. Yeah, go ahead.
The perimeter fence does have a lethal force authorized warning on it. It is one of the most locked down military bases in the U.S., so I think the rules of engagement are pretty lethal.
How do you get stationed at Area 51? Can you imagine that? Do you put that on your wish list? It's like, I want to go to Germany, Japan, and Area 51. Like, what's even the name of that base? You know, I can imagine a bunch of people straight out of tech school putting Area 51 on their dream sheet list, and the people that are like, Area 51, whatever.
I'm pretty sure that there's a very select list of MOSs that go there, and for everybody else, like cooks and guards and maintenance and stuff, I'm pretty sure they'd have to have like several years experience and extreme vetting.
Yeah, I mean, you need security at an Air Force base. Security forces. That was my job. So I mean, I could have been stationed at Area 51. Spill over the beams.
It was still too late to re-enlist.
Yeah. Raided from the inside.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my goodness! Wasn't there something about some Antifa dude getting killed that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, we're kind of coming up on an hour here, and I was hoping we get a little bit more time to go into this. But in Tacoma, Washington, a man named Willem Van Spronsen, a 69-year-old member of Antifa and
69. Can you believe there's people that old in Antifa?
Well, yeah, there's they say that if you're not a liberal in your 20s, you don't have a heart, and if you're still a liberal in your 40s, you don't have a brain. So this guy must have really, really been empty-headed.
69 years old. That's amazing.
Yeah, he's a regular fixture in the Tacoma, Washington area Antifa crowds. He was always, in those protests and riots and stuff all up and down the West Coast in the Washington and Oregon areas. He was a member of Antifa, Redneck Revolt, and the Puget Sound John Brown Gun Club, which is a mouthful. The thing is that he was on he personally was on a couple of CNN shows that were extolling the virtues of these brave anti-fascists out there taking down the Orange Reich. That is
so brave.
Yeah,
stunning too.
Any day now, the Orange Reich is upon us, right? and these communist LARPers are out there getting hopped up on all
Hopped out the
sorts.
Mountain Dew.
Yeah, hopped up on Mountain Dew, and I guess in his case, a can of Ensure, and just no, they're out there. They're getting radicalized by a lot of the rhetoric that is coming out of people in Congress like Maxine Waters and AOC with their concentration camp hyperbole and all this other shit. So this guy, he's 69 years old. He doesn't have a whole lot of years left in him anyway. He was probably had some type of terminal illness, which is why he decided to commit suicide by cop. He was a felon, so he was prohibited from owning a gun, and yet he tried to storm this building alone, armed with road flares, Molotov cocktails, and an AR-15. His idea or his plan of attack was to throw Molotov cocktails at the concrete building, because smart, and as you do, and throw road flares under the propane tank, and then I guess shoot it with the AR to make this like 300-gallon propane tank explode, which probably would have leveled the building and killed all of the people detained inside, but who needs logic, right? Luckily, because Antifa sucks at killing just as badly as they suck at everything else, he was the only one that was killed in the exchange by Washington State Patrol responding to the incident.
And nothing of value was lost.
Nothing of value was lost, but I think what we need to take out of this is that nothing was said on the news. I learned about this 2 days ago when I was going through the little notifications I get from YouTube up in the corner of my phone, and I see all these people that have Antifa terrorist strikes Washington. I'm like, okay, hyperbole. And then it was like Antifa terrorists manifesto, and Antifa terrorist was John Brown. I'm sitting there looking at all these titles of these YouTube videos from people that I watch and trust. And I'm just like, terrorist? What the hell? And I started watching a couple of them, and I'm just like, why? Because I'd been scrolling through Facebook all day, and I hadn't seen one single article about any type of Antifa terrorist until I hear it from YouTube people. And this is exactly what it was. It was a terrorist attack. This was a politically motivated act of violence in order to change somebody's political opinion. And he tried to blow up a building and set it on fire. So that sounds like
he killed everybody inside.
Yeah.
You do not rescue detained immigrants by killing them, guy. All right, Mr. 69-year-old Antifa terrorist. First of all, where the hell do you get off thinking you're going to do anything of value as a terrorist at 69 years old? Terrorism is a young man's game, dude. You're old. Retire. You're lucky to have made it so far being as stupid as you are. All right?
Yep.
And second of all, whenever do you ever hear people go, oh, well, Antifa's never murdered somebody?
It ain't for of trying.
Yeah, we're not as bad as the Nazis. They've actually killed people. We haven't. Well, it's just because you suck at everything, dude. It's not because you haven't tried to kill people. You just suck.
Right,
You tried
exactly.
and failed. You don't win any virtue points for attempted murder. All right? All you do is get fail points for that. You're not morally superior than somebody who succeeds at murder just because you were too inept to actually accomplish your goal.
Right, yeah. And that's the thing. It's like I think the only body count that the right has in contemporary American history right now is Charlottesville. And that's the one that they always run back to. It's like, hey, remember when a bunch of leftists burned down Berkeley, California? Oh, but what about Charlottesville? Or you remember that one time that they assaulted that guy in Portland and busted his head open and threw concrete on him? Yeah, but Charlottesville. And hey, remember when that guy in Washington tried to blow up an ICE detention center? Yeah, but Charlottesville. And remember that other time that they burned Berkeley to the ground? Yeah, but Charlottesville. It's just like, okay, yeah, Charlottesville happened.
And we should just give them a Nazi to kill, and that will even up the score, right? And then we never have to hear that stupid "but we never killed someone" argument again. Right? But you can't gift them that because they botch it some way or another. I mean, they fail at everything. What you give them give them Hitler, literally Hitler reincarnated. Give him to them on a silver platter, and they'll still fail to kill him.
Yeah, it'd be like Hitler tied to a chair. Here's a gun with a loaded magazine. Just go ahead and shoot some rounds into him and take out your frustrations. And you guys can say, yeah, we killed Hitler. And they'll come back, directions unclear, dick caught in ceiling fan.
It's like, yeah, we're part of a gun club. We don't actually know how to use this thing. I've never shot a gun in my life. We just say that to make ourselves look more revolutionary.
Right, and the thing that is probably the most interesting about this is that before this event happened, the Redneck Revolt, John Brown Gun Club, Northwest Antifa, all this parade of retards was featured on.
That's ableist.
Yes, of course it is. Was featured on no less than 3 CNN primetime television shows. You had CNN Tonight, Cuomo Primetime, and some CNN special called United Shades of America with W. Kamau Bell. I don't know how to pronounce the guy's name, and I don't particularly care. But anyways, they were painting these guys as just, they're anti-fascist protesters, and they're teaching marginalized groups to defend themselves. And I guess, the Second Amendment is cool as long as you wrap it up in some type of communist empowerment symbology. And the great thing about it is that while this United Shades special was playing, W. Kamau Bell was fundraising for this pack of lunatics on Twitter.
And they still can't kill anybody.
They still can't kill anybody.
See, this is the thing. The left creates Nazis by making Nazis out of normal people. Like Ben Shapiro. He's a Nazi. Doesn't matter that he's a Jewish traditional conservative. He is a Nazi.